Hello, my friend. Welcome to podcast series Lifelong Learning with Dee. I am your podcast host, Dee, a UK-based Transformational and Mindset Coach. I am also a commercial lawyer and an entrepreneur. As a Mindset Coach, I help people with personal growth and development as well as career change. And in this podcast series, I explore various subjects such as coaching, personal development, and spirituality. So today we will be continuing to explore the subject of past life regression, which is something that I am really passionate about. It is one of the spiritual healing methods that uses the technique of hypnosis to recover the memories of clients or subjects' past lives. Joining me today is Deborah Morris, who is a Birmingham-based past life regression therapist, a spiritual medium, a spiritual healer, and a musician. And she will be sharing her experience and expertise in this area. Deborah, welcome to Lifelong Learning with Dee. Thank you for joining me today. First of all, would you like to say hi and give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Hi, my name's Deborah Morris and I'm a therapist. I do several therapies. I'm a past life regression therapist. I also do sound healing. I'm a spiritual medium and a spiritual healer. And also a musician, so quite a mixed bag that I bring to the table, really. I believe today we're going to talk quite a bit about the past life regression therapy.
Great, thank you. So my first question for you is that for those who have never heard of past life regression or don't know much about it, could you give us a brief summary of what this is about and what's it for?
So some people come for past life regression as a therapy when they've got a particular issue that needs resolving. Maybe they've got repetitive behaviour in terms of being treated badly or spending money all the time or giving things away all the time. And some people come out of curiosity. They may feel that they just are drawn to a certain culture or a certain country or a certain type of food and they're passionate about it, or an era. You know, a lot of people, there may be people who are passionate about everything Victorian, and so they may regress to find out what that obsession is. So you can come for a regression therapy session out of curiosity, and some people have got real deeply seated emotional issues they need to sort out. So when I work as a past life regression therapist, there's the possibility to experience age regression, which is where regress means going back in time, so going back to capture memories, as you rightly said. But age regression is for memories from this lifetime, which are often from childhood, but also we can block things out as teenagers and young adults and older adults. Anything traumatic can be blocked out. And so the regression process can help you to tap back into memories of things that are getting in the way, or that you're going out of your way to get around going to a certain place or behaving in a certain way. So age regression will help with that, and then you can go back into past life regression. You can go via the womb, so you can have womb regression, and it's quite amazing really what people do, what information people gather from having a womb regression, where you become aware of whether or not you heard your mum's heartbeat, whether you heard conversations that were going on, whether you picked up on emotions in mum, whether she was excited about the pregnancy or anxious, anything that may have happened to you as a fetus during the pregnancy or at the time of birth. So some people may do age and womb regression alone, or they may do that and then go back into past life. And there are other people who are just interested in past lives. So most of us have been here at least once before, and some of us many, many times. And past life regression takes you into the theta state through a process of relaxation. And the theta state is a state that you're in every single night before you go into deepest sleep. So you will dip in and out of that maybe 2 or 3 times each night, depending how long you sleep for. And in the theta state, that's when you're most relaxed and your subconscious can come forwards and bring information that you may otherwise not remember. So some people may have a flashback because they go somewhere that reminds their subconscious, bring this forward because we've been here before and we need to know that we're reenacting something, but doing it in a different way. So the main thing for me for past life regression is to help people understand and accept things in their life that maybe don't make sense to them. So that acceptance is just simply amazing. You witness people having a complete turnaround in situations in their lives once they accept, I wrote this story so that I could come back and change the outcome. So, for example, if somebody in one or more past lives came to a bit of a sticky end because of someone who made it impossible for them to live or survive or wiped them out or whatever, they may have made a past life promise to themselves, they're never doing that to me again. And it's as if the universe says, okay, well, we'll see, shall we? So you come back in, and when you're reborn, it's not usually the same thing that happens, but it creates the same energy. So you've set yourself up to meet that person or that situation again, or a similar situation, in order for your soul to tick a box. You've got a list of things to do in this current lifetime to change the outcome. So some people may have gone to several past lives during a session, and we have to join it together, you know, a bit like a dot to dot, to find out what the story is that's brought them to this point now. And I can promise you, when people come for a regression, there's something deeply seated in them that says, okay, now I'm ready. So they've had to live through certain things. So I believe karmic stuff doesn't clear alone. It won't clear just from the information. Stuff has to be happening, and you're ticking the boxes saying, I changed the outcome. You know, we're all here to reach our highest and greatest potential. And sometimes the way you do that is by going into a situation that's difficult, but changing the outcome for yourself. So it's different from another lifetime. So during a regression, if you're not shown someone's face, if you're shown the back of someone's head or a blurred vision and parts of it aren't clear, it's because your soul still has to experience something. You've either got someone to meet, or you know the person, but you're not meant to be aware yet of what the test is going to be, if you like, what it is, what challenge you've got to rise to. Because you've got to rise to it independently of that regression, okay? But it will show you the reasons why you're there. It will show you what that challenge is. So to just regress when there's nothing going on wouldn't clear any karma. It's helping you to join the dots together to understand what the karmic issue is. Now, it's really important to say here, there's negative karma and there's positive karma, okay? Some people regress because they're thinking, wow, how is this life like this? Why am I doing the job I'm doing? Why do I love this so much? You know, it's not always a negative thing. People come into it scared sometimes, thinking I must have done something really bad because of all this stuff happening to me. And a lot of the time, I've seen it so many times where actually you've either said you're going to defend somebody else. You know, it's somebody else that had a hard time, and you said, well, that's not right, so I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen to them again. So you take on a load of stuff. There's all different scenarios that come out during a regression.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating.
It is.
Thank you for sharing that. So you touched upon some of the reasons why people do past life regression, such as curiosity. What are the other reasons? For example, have you come across anybody who's trying to find out about their life purpose?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a few things there that you've asked me about that sort of branch out into lots of other areas. There are many people who, they give me all the reasons that they want to come, and some of them you think there's no way you could get all of that in one session, but then they ask about their life purpose, they add it on at the end. And actually it's the other reasons that are actually important. Because your life purpose, not everybody has one set mission or one set goal. Right now, during these times of great change for humanity, there's a lot of people who have promised to come back and reincarnate at times of great change so that they can help. And it doesn't mean they do that and nothing else. So that may be a purpose, but I can guarantee you most people have other things that they do as well. A lot of them are creative. I feel that's, you know, my music has been in my life all of my life. You know, I've been working on stage for 40 years, more recently recording because I stopped doing it when I was 17. But when I discovered my spiritual work, which was probably around the age of probably 40, it really kicked in. I was doing stuff and not realising I was doing it before that. But around the age of 40, I soon began to realise there was a crossover with the music and the spiritual work. So we all take our light and our spirituality out into the world not just through standing by a therapy coach. So to me, this is my example of it, working spiritually as a medium and a healer and a therapist is as natural in me as the music is. I have to do both. And so we're all multifaceted. You know, I don't believe any of us are just a straight line or a flat piece of paper.
Yeah.
So when people do ask about a life purpose, it's important to remember that I said, you know, some people, their lives are just brilliant and they want to know, why am I doing this? So there was one gentleman who wanted to know why he does the work that he does as a healer. And his past life that explained it was nothing to do with healing at all. But there were such terrible things that had happened to people around him, and because of some things that he put into place in that lifetime, that by the end of that life, he wanted to give back. And he couldn't do it all in a short space of time. And in this lifetime, he's here giving back to a lot of people. And so he helps a lot of people. But it's not his only purpose, okay? Because as well as helping others, we all have to ascend as well, yeah? And so, for example, you know, we talk about 7 main chakras. And when we were here during the times of Atlantis, we had 12 main functioning chakras. We've got hundreds, we've got thousands of them all over the body and in our energy field. But there are 12 main ones, and those top 5 above the 7 that we recognise are being gifted back to us. Now, this is something I teach through Angelic Reiki. And Angelic Reiki has a branch within it called multidimensional healing. And it will take the client into a past life space. They may or may not get some glimmers and flashbacks, but the point of it is that it lifts some of the issues out. And some people get to see them, some of them don't. Okay? And so this is all connected with our ascension. For us all to ascend to a higher vibration where we're living in love and light and pure harmony, peace and joy with no judgment and no fear, those chakras are being gifted back to us for us to be able to do that. So as a race, we were stripped of the higher chakras when some of the spiritual teachers started to use them for their own gain in the times of Atlantis. And it came to the point where Atlantis fell. It sank, we were drowned, and we were stripped of those chakras. Gradually over time, we've moved further and further and further away from what God or divine source or the universe intended. We've gone through the Industrial Revolution, the Digital Revolution, all of these things. We've become part of a very concrete jungle and a processed world. And there's a lot of people thinking, why am I here? They get up every day, why am I here? I used to do it myself. And so the purpose is in finding out what it means to be here now, to be a living creature in with the trees and the animals, stepping away from the processed world and the timetables and the reason to respond to everything and get through red tape and all of these things, you know? We're meant to just live within our means, not to starve, not to struggle. We're meant to just take the nuts and berries that we need from the land and only take what we need, and if we've got any excess, to share it with our neighbours. And so the regression, a lot of the purpose, when people come to find their purpose, it's actually bigger or smaller than they expect. Now, when I said about some people thinking this is amazing, I love what I'm doing, they could have been doing brilliant work in the last few lifetimes to help humanity, and that is why they're here again doing it, because at some point they've died or their physical body has died and their soul makes a plan to continue. And so we will have reincarnated earth angels, light workers, people who carry that beacon of light. We will have reincarnated at these times of massive change so that we can help humanity. The children that are coming in now, they're all going to be awake. Starseeds, they've been here so many times. They're here to lead the way. They choose the parents. We all choose our parents and they choose us. We've written this story before we came. And so they're here with parents who won't quash it in them. They'll have at least one parent, maybe two, who are both awake, but at least one who will allow them to shine their light and spread their wings. And so, you know, when I'm taking somebody into a regression, I don't know what they're going to bring forwards. It's nothing to do with me. My job is to take them into the theta state to help them relax. So when they pick up the phone and text me or email or call, their subconscious is already working. Their subconscious is saying, let's do this now, it's time.
Yeah.
And when they come to see me, you know, we have an initial consultation then over the phone where we chat about their reasons for wanting to do it, and I make sure I'm happy to go ahead as well, because it's a two-way deal. You know, it has to work for everybody. And then we have a chat in the consultation room, in the healing room, before we start. The whole time that subconscious is working. And then most people go on the couch. Some people stay in an armchair or a recliner, and it's their choice entirely. And I just take them through a relaxation process that helps them to really ground, but to raise their vibration higher as well, so that they can completely let go. And when they completely let go, that's when the subconscious kicks in. And so for me, then, I always say to people, look, neither of us know what's going to come here. We're both flying by the seat of our pants. That's how I describe it, because sometimes people are bringing memories forward, and I'm thinking, help me God with this, okay, but I know the answer's going to come. They touch on certain things, and if you can imagine a dot to dot with lots of pinheads of lights where they've tapped into certain lives and certain bits of information, because you'll only go to the bits you need. You wouldn't do the whole of a life where you've lived 80, 90 years. You'll only get the bits you need. And then maybe this is my spiritual side, but I believe all therapists work in a similar way, but maybe differently. Spirit talk through me, and I'm as amazed as other people sometimes how it's pieced together. You've certainly got to be on on your toes and ready to run with it, but sometimes people's stories, they're pieced together in such an amazing way. I'm in awe of it, and I do it, as a job. I see people all the time, but I am in awe of how amazing the process is. It's just quite magical, and people get acceptance. Yes, you can do the healing side of it then, which is really important. So I make sure anything that's brought forward has a healing element in it, and there are many different methods of healing within a past life regression, but the ultimate goal is acceptance. People have to accept, I wrote this story so that I could experience that, so that all these other things could happen.
Thanks for sharing that. That makes a lot of sense. And I love what you said about acceptance. So moving on to the next question, which is, I wanted to explore more about what your experience is like as a past life regression therapist. What is the most interesting story that you have come across?
Okay. Well, I won't divulge somebody's complete story, because it's not mine to tell, and I keep everybody's confidence. Everything that happens in this room stays in this room. But I will say there was a lady who came to me once with 10 questions that she wanted answering. Now, some therapists will do a 2-hour session and they'll go to one life. But my feeling is that if we go to one life and we bring something forwards, and the rest of that story has happened over another 2 or 3 lifetimes, you're going to send somebody away in limbo because you haven't got the full picture. I don't sit there looking at my watch. That's why the sessions are 3 to 4 hours, because people need to experience the full story. They don't need the whole of every one of those lifetimes. They just need the thread that's relevant to the question they need answering. And so this lady who had 10 questions, in my head I thought, we're not going to get all of that done. But do you know, she went to one past life and she went to the last 10 minutes of that life, and she got all 10 questions answered in the last 10 minutes of her life. But then the following week, they were so close together, I was meant to see this juxtaposition really. The following week I had a lady who wanted one question answering about something major that was happening within her family and her grown-up children. And she had to go to 5 past lifetimes to piece it together. So in the first life, they weren't related at all, as in blood relations. They were on a battlefield, and they were all men, and she was on the one battlefield with people who were reincarnated as 2 of her children, and the enemy was her other 2 children. Obviously, they weren't her children then. And then after that, she had a life where she was a casual worker on a farm, and crossed paths with a couple of them again. Gradually, they'd become family until they became, became her children.
Yeah.
And so her answers took longer to find, because She went to 5 past lives, but it's still pieced together. And my word is wow every time, every single day. And you think of the things that people have been through. One of the most interesting things is that people tend to present with an energy that I can look and I know. I just know where they've been for a past life. I might not know the full story, and sometimes they have a knowing. You know, some people you can look at them and say, I know you've had a galactic past life, you've been Atlantean, or you've been a Viking or Egyptian.
Yeah.
From my own personal belief, you know, I was always scared of past life regression because I used to have a lot of bad stuff in my life. And so I thought I'd done something bad, which I mentioned earlier. You think you've done something bad, but actually you haven't. You've agreed to come back and experience some bad stuff so that you can rise to your own challenge of rising above it and becoming who you're here to really be, and reaching that start. And that's just fantastic. So I used to sit in a spiritual development circle where we developed our mediumship and did some meditation. And the one night I turned up and we were told we're going to do a group past life regression. And I thought, well, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have come because I was terrified. But do you know, we did the group regression. Now, within a group regression, I've run group regressions. They're not the same as one-to-one because you can't go into a deep personal story with everybody. So most people go in with one question and they'll bring one memory forward that they can get answers from. So I tapped into an Egyptian past life and I could see eyes looking at me. And the eyes were in the tomb. So my pharaoh had died. I was one of the wives because there would have been many wives, and the pharaohs would have been placed in the tomb with their wives and their gold. And so I came to a sticky ending in that life in the tomb, and there were eyes looking at me because it was the other wives who were frightened. So it resolved something in me instantly, because ever since I'd been a child, if I had friends to sleep over or even with my brother across the landing at home at night time, I'd say, don't look at me. When it was dark, if somebody looked at me and I could only see the whites of their eyes, I was terrified. And I'd always say to friends, don't look at me when we're talking, when we have a sleepover, it was dark. And even as an adult, that carried on. You couldn't look at me in the dark. But once I had that group regression experience, and I knew the reason I was frightened of eyes looking at me was because it took me back to the Egyptian past life, that fear went. It went. Because I had an acceptance. I understood that I needed to come into a life where I would experience it in a different way and I'd be able to heal it. And so that on the same level works for everybody. They won't be in a tomb the same as me with eyes looking at them, but they will have something that they need to understand. And so really that is my experience, just to not expect anything. Expect more than everything. That's what I would say to any therapist and anybody who is the client, you know. You go into it with expectations, but actually it's much bigger than we know. I think the hardest thing for people is when they want something massive and magnificent and they want to know that they were royalty or famous, and actually they weren't. You know, they were a scullery maid and they scrubbed the floors, but some of the things that happened to them explain why they are who they are. It's quite amazing.
It is amazing though, because so for example, one of my relatives, she was really scared of water and she didn't learn how to swim until the age of like 40, and that was because probably she has drowned in the past, which happened to a lot of people, isn't it? So yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's fascinating.
So there can be all sorts of reasons why people may have a fear of water, and you'll quite often find something happened in their childhood where they had a near miss or somebody saved them. And it would depend how it happens, whether it's an accident or somebody held them under the water. It depends, you know, on how they reach that point. But certainly some people will come back in with a fear of water, but some people will come back in with a need to control it. So they will have a job or a purpose or a life where water is a major element. Apart from it being a natural element, it's an element of their life in a way that they have to be able to control it. Whether they're plumbing or cleaning water tanks or, you know, a firefighter with a hose. But it is quite fascinating really how how the water element comes in. I know when I was training, as with any therapy, when you're training, you have to try it out on other students and then you go and do your case studies. And I decided that my question, because you will always have a question when you go into a regression, you'll start with a question. And I wanted to know why I do the work that I do. And I should have thought about it because I kind of knew the answer really. But I was taken back to an Atlantean past life. And so that was absolutely fascinating to experience what I experienced and to see what I saw during that regression. But my reason for talking about it is because after we did that practice session with another student, we then went for a lunch break. And then we came back into the room with the tutor and everybody was feeding back. And I said, I feel like I'm drowning. And that was because the girl that had regressed me had taken me into that space, but not realised she needed to bring me out more fully. And so I still felt like I was drowning. And so that can have a lingering effect with people. As a therapist, you have to be conscious of that people come all the way back and let go of anything that no longer serves them.
So thanks for sharing your stories and experience. My next question is, for somebody who wants to come to the session, you mentioned about the one-to-one session and also the group regression session. What are the general process like for each one?
Okay, so on a one-to-one, once we've done the initial consultation over the phone and we've had a longer consultation in the room and we're preparing to go into the theta state, I talk people through a series of relaxation methods that help them to relax deeper than a normal relaxation. It does take you really deep to a subconscious level. When you're working subconsciously, you are aware of what's going on in the room, so you can hear stuff that's going on, but there's something that you're tapping into that's much deeper. So it's really important to say that, you asked me before about purpose, and when we've been here time and time again, it's as if we're filling up, this is how I describe it, a goodie bag along the way. So there are certain things that people have done that serve them in every lifetime, and certain things that need to happen so you can let go of them. And so once we go into that theta state that we go into with the relaxation, and the next part of the process is that your subconscious is getting busy, what you're bringing forward is the gifts, talents and abilities that serve you, okay? And that's really important for people to recognise that they've used those gifts before. Now, when they get to a point in their current life where a lot of people come and say, I don't know why I'm here, I feel stuck, I know straight away, well, this is part of your ascension and your soul climbing up a ladder. And so you've done many things in this lifetime that remind your soul what you did in other lifetimes. It reminds you of the knowledge you already had, okay? And then you've put it all in a bag along with the stuff you don't need. So part of the process is to take out everything you don't need. Have a new goodie bag that you hold close to your heart and you just put in the bits you need. So throughout the process, whether you go to 1 life or 2, 3, 4 lives, you will always be asked, what are the gifts you've brought forward from that? Where are your strengths in that lifetime? And they go into the goodie bag. And then you get to a point in your current life where, okay, now I don't know where I'm going. It feels like everything's stopped. And that's because you've finished reminding your soul what you already knew. Okay, so even if you're on a certain path and you're determined to get straight ahead to that goal, if something takes you off on a job that wasn't right for you, or with a gang of people that weren't right for you, or a situation that didn't work out, you're still meant to have done those things. There are no mistakes. So you may tap into them to find out what it is that needs letting go of, what you've cleared, and the gifts that you've brought back. There are no mistakes. Okay, so it's really important to know that. And then once people have got to that point, they can then start tapping into what they've written into their path for this lifetime. And that's the point where they're like, okay, I don't know what to do now, because all I've been doing so far is repeating what I've already done to remind me what I forgot when I was born, because we conveniently forget it all when we're born. We've got this plan and this story, and then it just leaves us because it's meant to. And so then we move forward and we only keep the good experiences once we've learned to not hold on to things that weigh a ton. Let's face it, it's really hard for people to carry stuff. When people say, I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders, that's hard work. And you may have spent all of this lifetime carrying that stuff, and the previous life and the one before that, until you've sorted this karmic journey out.
Yeah.
Okay? And so when people get to that point where they've done all that letting go, from then on they realise the only thing they need to put in the goodie bag is the stuff that serves them. The other stuff comes so that you can learn to let go of energies that aren't good for you. Okay? So now the difference between doing this on a one-to-one and in a group is that, well, there are two things. One, it may be a group of people who all know each other and they do curricular stuff together, regularly meet and gather, and so they may have a link in their past lives. And the other is a group, say a gathering, a one-off retreat or a seminar or something, where they don't really know each other. That doesn't matter. The relaxation is the same. Okay, it's the therapist's voice, their timing, and certain words, key words that they use, which I won't reveal because that will make people maybe not be as likely to go deep when they decide to regress. I can't imagine it would stop them, but there are certain words that you use that help people to relax deeply. Okay, and some people are very visual. And so you can have a visual meditation, and other people have got very analytical brains, or they don't see, they're not very visionary, and so it works in another way. It may be more sensory in what they can feel or smell, or there's different ways of doing it. Okay, so within a group, the other main difference is that I won't take people on a one-to-one to the next scene or the next bit based on what they're telling me. So I ask a client questions based on what they've just seen in the last scene. In a group one, people's feedback, their dialogue is internal. They can hear it in their head, but they're not speaking their answer out loud because there are too many people in the room for that to work. And so you give them the right amount of time to do that, and you just have a feeling, you just have a knowing, okay, now it's time for the next question, and you invite them to then go down a certain corridor or through a certain door and to ask the question they want to ask. So the question's coming from them. So there's only the opportunity to do the one question. I mean, they could do more than one question, but within that question, there's then the opportunity to say, what have you learned from that? What do you need to let go from that? So if it needs expanding on, it's not as easy to do that in a group session. But group sessions are very beneficial in other ways. They're brilliant for hearing each other's feedback.
Yeah. So that has brought us to the end of part 1. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed it and find it interesting. If you have any feedback or comment, I'd love to hear from you. Please stay tuned next week for part 2. Have a lovely, lovely weekend. Take very good care of yourself. Sending lots of love from England, and bye for now.